Here we go with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thanks for joining us here. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation in the stream. We do it Tuesday nights at 8:30, 9:30, somewhere in that range. We do it on Friday mornings at 10 o'clock, getting you ready for the upcoming game. Chiefs and Bengals this week, much to cover in that game. Are the Bengals really Kansas City's biggest rivalry? Certainly a lot of space in the Bengals' mind occupied by the Kansas City Chiefs. We've heard that from the comments this week. Does Joe Burrow belong in the same class with Patrick Mahomes? Is he even healthy? Can Kingsley Suamataia handle Trey Hendrickson on the left side of the Chiefs' offensive line? Are the Bengals a bigger challenge for the Chiefs' defense this week than what the Ravens brought last week? What is the most important matchup of the game? Are we talking undefeated season if the Chiefs win this? And, of course, we'll give you our predictions. It's all coming up right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it, Curtis. Chiefs and Bengals week 2. It was a difficult start to the season when the schedule came out to see the Ravens and then the Bengals back-to-back, both games at home, and a little extra time for the Chiefs to prepare for this one. And, of course, we've heard smack talk already coming out of Cincinnati. CamTaylor-Britt talking about Xavier Worthy. Yeah, it's fast. That's about it. He can run straight. It's the usual for a Chiefs-Bengals game. Jeff, let's start there. Is this the biggest rivalry the Chiefs have going right now?
No question about it. I mean, it's the biggest rivalry because they've lost to this team more than they've won. And so that is, and they've lost significant games. And so that's, whenever you have that dynamic be a part of the conversation, it's going to create a lot more acrimony and words being, said back and forth amongst the teams. You don't see this happening with the Baltimore Ravens. You saw it happen once with the Buffalo Bills last year when Deion Dawkins made a comment about them the Chiefs coming to play in Buffalo. But I don't think anybody really has the nerve to talk trash to the Chiefs at the level that the Bengals do. It's because they believe they can win the game. And so, yeah, this is easily the biggest rival for the Chiefs.
Sam, do you think this is the biggest rival for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, look, the best rivalries in sports are the ones that are not created by professional sports, I'll say, are not the ones that are created by the history of what happened 10, 15 years ago. And it's not created by the fans disliking the other team. It's when the players genuinely don't like each other. And I'll never forget walking in the post-game locker room after the AFC Championship game that the Chiefs won a year after the Bengals eliminated them from the playoffs. And non-Super Bowl, it's as amped as I've ever seen a professional sports locker room. I mean, I don't know if this counts as our one allowed cuss word, but I remember walking into the locker room and a defensive player looked at me and said, "Burrowhead D's nuts." And then he said, if you use that, don't use my name. And I said, fair enough. But it's I've like the players consider this the rivalry, and so that's why you see this trash talk. It's why it is such an amped game every year.
Yeah, it is. And it is amazing. It was fun to look at some of the responses to CamTaylor-Britt's comments. Like, you just lost to the Patriots and you're going to talk trash on the two-time defending Super Bowl champ. And that was not Kansas City fans, Jeff. That was just some football fans that were responding to that. Listen, the Bengals seem to be confident. Everybody else seems to be confident in the fact that, you can just, flip a switch after the first couple of weeks. They don't seem to be worried that they had such a poor performance. They're on to, talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, but is that really a wise comment to be making, coming off the game that the Bengals just came off of?
But I don't think they're ever worried about the wisdom of it. And look, they were talking smack coming in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago. So I don't know if you can talk smack in that situation. You're not really concerned about week 2 of the season. And look, I'm one of those people who believe the Bengals are going to be just fine. And no matter what happened in the first week of the season. And if you want a parallel, look at the Chiefs last year when they were struggling. And people kept saying, well, they're going to find it. They're going to flip a switch because they're that talented. And they did. And so the Bengals have shown they can do that too. They were flipping the switch last year when they started slow. They started 0-2 the year before that and finished, I think it was 12-4 or 12-5. And so they are more than capable of doing this. And again, I think when styles make fights, right? When you're talking about a team that you hate, you're not coming into this with your head, in the clouds and thinking, oh, I hope we can do this. Or they are going to be very serious about winning this game on Sunday.
Yeah, they do struggle in the first 2 weeks. We haven't heard Justin Reed. Justin Reed gave some bulletin board material to the Bengals a couple of years ago. It's gone both ways between these two teams. I do think it's a rivalry, and it's also the biggest rival for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's also because the Bengals are good, but there is the element of, are they stuck in neutral for whatever reason? Like, I talked with Mo Egger in Cincinnati a little while ago, and I was asking him, and he's like, listen, we thought they had figured it out, right? That they had the new solution to it, and they haven't been able to get out of the gates. And so maybe this is how they're trying to fire themselves up, Sam, is to, okay, we didn't have the emotion against the Patriots. Maybe it's hard to think the opening game would be a look-ahead situation, but with the Chiefs looming on the other side, maybe it's as simple as that. And maybe we get the full, the rivalry is what killed them against the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, you get this like double-edged sword where people complain that, you've got to move on is a major part of an athlete's mindset, right? Is like not getting too high, too low. I mean, if nothing else, the Bengals seem to be intently focused on the Chiefs, not focused on, dwelling on a week 1 result. But, to CamTaylor-Britt's comments, let's be honest. This was some scouts' opinion about Xavier Worthy as well, is that, because the other addition to his comments was saying that, well, he's only 100, what is he, 100 and something pounds? Like, you can push him off the line of scrimmage. Like, that is the knock on Xavier Worthy. That is the aspect of Xavier Worthy's rookie season. I think most of us are intrigued to see is what is he like against a more physical brand of football in the NFL, against press coverage constantly in the NFL. Does he have a more diverse route tree than running up and down the field? We saw some elements of it in week 1, but it's 1 week into the season. He touched the ball 3 times. I think it's a great debut, but I don't think any of us are sitting here ready to say that Xavier Worthy's got the entire league figured out. I think that CamTaylor-Britt said what, like I said, a lot of professional scouts were thinking about Xavier Worthy coming into this season.
We'll talk about Joe Burrow here in a second. First, I want to let you know we're brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gay Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit of quarterback. Let's talk about Joe Burrow. First of all, Joe Burrow, Mike Sando does a thing from The Athletic where he talks to all these executives in the NFL, and he comes out with his quarterback tiers. I know we stole it. We do it. He was the first guy to do it, but now everybody has tiers for everything. And he had three guys in tier one. It was Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow really on the same level as Patrick Mahomes in your mind, Jeff?
Yeah. Because he's beaten Patrick Mahomes. I mean, there's
Jacoby Brissett.
He hasn't won an MVP. What's that?
I said Jacoby Brissett beat Patrick Mahomes once. That doesn't put him in the same category.
Well, he's beaten him 3 times. He beat him 3 out of 4 times. Jacoby Brissett hasn't done that. And so, I mean, that alone vaults you into a certain level. And I know we get caught up in stats and styles and all this stuff. Joe Burrow has gone into Buffalo and beaten Josh Allen. He's come to Arrowhead and beaten Patrick Mahomes in playoff games. He's taken a team that was horrible when he showed up and turned them into a perennial contender and taken them to a Super Bowl. I think that's what great quarterbacks do. And so, has he had injuries? Yeah, that's a big part of it. But when he's been healthy, he's been as dangerous as any quarterback in the league. And so that, to me, if Mahomes is obviously the gold standard, but if you're beating the gold standard 75% of the time, you're going to be an elite quarterback in this league.
Yeah. Jared Goff is 2-0, Tyler points out. I mean, I think we get the point. We could find other guys that have beaten Patrick Mahomes, but Joe Burrow has the whole package. He's also won in the playoffs. He's 5-2 with his record in the playoffs. It's more than just the head-to-head, but that is one of the things to put into it is how do you fare against the other best quarterbacks out there? Sam, do you put Joe Burrow on the same level with Patrick Mahomes? How do you put it?
No, I mean, I think when we did the quarterback tiers, I had Patrick Mahomes in his own tier. I mean, I don't think that anyone has the resume he has. I mean, factually, nobody has the resume he has. But with Joe Burrow specifically, there's 2 elements of this. First of all, how do defenses treat you? And he does get the Patrick Mahomes treatment. He does get the cover 2. I mean, the whole league's getting the cover 2 treatment right now. We saw the Dolphins, even before Tua went out last night, struggle because they saw way more cover 2 from the Bills than they are accustomed to seeing. Like, it's a league-wide phenomenon. But Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes were 2 of the first quarterbacks to see this so frequently. So I do think he gets the same treatment that Patrick Mahomes does from defenses. But the thing about Patrick Mahomes, the quote-unquote Mahomes magic that he has is the way he operates in the gray. And I think Joe Burrow is really good within the structure of the offense, terrific within the structure of the offense. I had him in tier 2. Patrick Mahomes is my only tier 1 guy. I had Burrow in tier 2. So I think he's terrific. But it's that operating in the gray that I think Joe Burrow struggles with. He had a double his pressure to sack ratio rate last year was double what Patrick Mahomes was. A year before it was even higher. It's above 20%. He doesn't have the same scramble, the same make something out of nothing ability that Patrick Mahomes has. And look, just last week in the opening week, he was pressured as the third lowest rate of his entire career. He was still sacked 3 times in the game. He doesn't avoid the negative plays in the same way Patrick Mahomes does. And until he is able to, do something besides exactly what the offense calls for. And he's good at reading to secondary options. I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of times when a play breaks down. And the play's not over when the play breaks down with Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of times in Cincinnati it is.
Yeah, it is.
I think we should specify, are we talking about, is he the equal of Patrick Mahomes or is he an elite quarterback? That's 2 different questions.
Yeah.
That is 2 different questions. Because I would answer those questions differently, Joe.
Yeah. And I think we would all agree he's elite. We would all see Patrick Mahomes is better, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here is trying to say that, he's Patrick Mahomes equal, but he is a great quarterback, and he's certainly great enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, as Jeff points out. He's done on a number of occasions and done it in big games, which, Patrick Mahomes has 3 playoff losses in his career, right? 3. 2 are to Tom Brady. one's to Joe Burrow. Like a lot of times when you have these little statistical things, you're like, oh, look what Adalberto Mondesi did. Isn't this a great stat? And then you go, who else did it? And it's like, well, it's Babe Ruth and then Shecky the Cheese, right? Like, oh, okay, well, maybe that stat's not that important, right? But when it's like, it's Joe Burrow and it's Tom Brady, that says a lot about where you are as a quarterback. So I don't think anybody, thinks that Joe Burrow can't get it done if, and as somebody said that, if it's the Joe Burrow we've seen. But is that what we're seeing now? Or with 16 of his first 20 passes being within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage against the New England Patriots, is Joe Burrow not the old Joe Burrow? Have injuries taken a toll? At least now, is he not completely back?
Well, again, I don't know what their game plan was. And yeah, you saw him messing with his wrist, so I'm going to acknowledge that was something that is worth noting. But I just have a hard time believing that Joe Burrow all of a sudden got to be mediocre or got to be a quarterback who can't kill you. And I know we live in a world where people want to nitpick based on who they like or who they don't like. But end of the day, the guy's a winner. He's won at every level. He's produced big plays at every level. And so, yeah, I mean, look, again, if we want to go back and watch the Raiders game and Christmas Day and see how Patrick Mahomes played in that game and have that be some kind of projection about where he's at as a quarterback or how he stumbled, we're not doing that kind of stuff. And so some guys just have bad days. He had a bad game. I look at the totality of his resume and say, again, the injuries are a factor, but it's not as if those injuries have stopped him from winning a lot of games and taking that team to a whole different level. I put a ton of stock in the fact that he took, again, that franchise, just as CJ Stroud did with Houston, to a whole different level, and not knocking Mahomes for not having to do it because he had a different circumstance, but that is what you bring franchise quarterbacks in to do.
Yeah. Sam, are we looking at a healthy Joe Burrow? Do we look at a bad game plan last week? I mean, obviously the hand is of note, right? It is the wrist, whatever's going on with him is of note, and injuries do take a toll and they do tend to pile up. And, I know you're like, well, he's too young, but he has been beaten up pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Joe Burrow is completely healthy, but I know he's different because these videos of him checking his wrist constantly, and he's explaining that you just want a constant motion. We know that's different, right? That's not what he was doing last year pre-injury. How much it's affecting him, only he really knows, and obviously he's not going to share that if it is something significant. But it's different video than what we've seen from Joe Burrow in the past. Having said that, I totally agree with Jeff's point about the fact that every quarterback has bad games, and this one seems to have a lot of them early in the season. It seems to take Joe Burrow into late September or even October to really get going. And so I don't think that a week one performance is indicative of like this new Joe Burrow is suddenly going to be a struggling quarterback. But I am interested to see what the injury situation is because, like I said a few times now, it's not something we've seen from him before with constantly checking his wrist. I think the Gatorade bottle thing was overblown, but he's flexing his wrist. Like he's doing something to try and, get something going in his wrist that is just something we haven't seen in the past.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the big things that, you wonder about is like, health-wise, can he, go out and make all the throws? Because he is the guy that, Mo Egger said it, F it, I'll throw it down there and let Jamar Chase go get it. And here he is dinking and dunking. I can't imagine that they don't want to get the ball down the field. But let's also point out Jamar Chase held in, didn't really practice much. T. Higgins wasn't in the game. He doesn't have his full complement. They're not. He has Jamar Chase, but he doesn't have Higgins. But they didn't practice. I mean, this could just be that they had a screwy training camp, right?
Well, and I don't want to say in defense of him, but in the years past, a couple of years ago, they started 0-2 and they lost to Pittsburgh in week 1. And I was there after their second loss. And there was a lot of talk about how they got to start taking what the defense gives him. He does have that in him, like Mahomes or Allen, of like, I'll take chances with the football. I think in that first week, that first loss to Pittsburgh, he threw a ton of interceptions and they lost by 1 or 2 points. And so the mandate was to start taking what teams give you. And I'm sure he was seeing a lot of, as Sam mentioned with the other teams, too high coverages and let's check it down, take what they give us, take a profit mentality. Maybe that came back to bite them. I mean, he wasn't the only quarterback in the NFL who didn't put up big numbers in week 1.
Yeah, no, lots of guys struggled. In fact, what it was like one of the lowest outputs. I have to go back and think how many touchdowns we have thrown on Monday night. I think it might have been the lowest one we've had in years for touchdowns by quarterbacks in the opening week, right, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, only 300-yard passers in the first week. But to Jeff's point, like Joe Burrow made that adjustment a year ago. So Patrick Mahomes had the lowest average depth of target in the NFL a season ago. If Joe Burrow had qualified because he didn't play enough games, he had the exact same number that Patrick Mahomes does. Like, and that's what I meant, that he's getting the Patrick Mahomes treatment from defenses that are taking away the deep shots. I mean, I do think he's got better receivers. I mean, Jamar Chase is a guy I'd be willing to take a chance to in a way that I would not have taken a chance to Marquez Valdez-Scantling a year ago downfield if he's in coverage. So I think Joe Burrow maybe has less of an excuse to dink and dunk than Mahomes does, but it is it is part of, developing your maturation as a quarterback is finding a different way to have the same sort of success. And that's exactly the way I expect the Chiefs to play him, by the way. I think that the Chiefs' best success against the Bengals has been proving that they can pressure without having a bunch of the Steve Spagnuolo blitzes and putting extra guys on the receivers, because the times they haven't done that, where they've tried to single cover these receivers, particularly Jamar Chase, it's been a lot of trouble for their secondary, even in their good seasons.
We always appreciate all the support from our great sponsors, like our friends at Besame Wellness.
Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. With fast, easy, and discreet delivery, you can enjoy the same deals you enjoy in-store, but delivered to your home or office. Even same day. Restrictions may apply. Any questions? Let Besame's top-rated customer service team assist you. And this Chiefs season, don't miss a minute of the game with no delivery fees on game days. And when the home team wins, so do you. Use promo code 3PEAT and receive some extra free goodies with your next Besame order. Don't forget, you can still use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order for online delivery or at any of their 5 area Besame locations.
Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting-edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros. Boost energy, reduce stress, and enhance well-being. It's perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Embrace a healthier, happier you. All right, let's talk about some breaking news that has come down. I know some other people have confirmed it. I confirmed as well, put a text in, and Hollywood Brown to the IR has just occurred. This puts him out for at least 4 weeks. We didn't think he was going to play this week, so I don't think it changes our perception of what's going on with the Bengals. But Jeff, what do you think when you hear now that they're going to do surgery and he's now going to be on the shelf for at least, it's not just a minimum, but at least 4 weeks?
I'm not surprised. And, I hate to be this guy who reminds people of the Eric Berry fiasco. But when people were talking about Hollywood Brown coming back, and I'd ask them, well, what's Andy saying? Well, some kind of, ambiguous comments. I said, I'm going to wait and see how this plays out, because a couple weeks ago, they were talking about how it was a timeline similar to what Tyreek Hill went through with his injury when he had that. And that was what he missed 4 games, but they were talking about as many as 5 or 6 at some point. So it's tough. It sucks for him. But it seemed as if they want to make sure this isn't a long-term deal or he's not at the risk of re-injury, it makes the most sense.
Yeah. Sam, it's not stunning news. It's unexpected, I think, based on, as Jeff said, he was ambiguous, but he kept citing the Tyreek Hill timeline, right? And so that seemed to, would lead you to believe that he was going to be back. How's your reaction now that they hit the IR right now and didn't do the surgery earlier?
Yeah, I mean, this changes from this is a discrepancy from the Tyreek Hill situation, because now he's going to have surgery on it. And this injury is a tricky thing because it's not a pain tolerance thing. It's not asking the player, how do you feel? Because Hollywood Brown has been present at practice, now obviously without a helmet. But, all reports are that he, from people I chat with, are that he's feeling great. This is about where your bone heals and its placement. And it's obviously not healing correctly, and that's why he has to have surgery. I will say the Chiefs have a bye in week 6. So I think having him out for the additional 4 weeks, it's actually 4 games, 5 weeks that you can get him, that there's some sense to that. But look, I mean, Hollywood Brown had a terrific training camp, and him being out is a loss for this offense. Just because they got by without him in week 1 does not mean they won't miss Hollywood Brown, because he was going to be a very important piece of what they're trying to do this year.
Yeah, Jeff, injuries have been a part of his career. You mentioned it. It's one of the things you talked about. And I now, with my 1,000 yards.
I was going to say, yeah, didn't somebody have a bold prediction about this?
I think I did as well, yeah.
Who's got 2 thumbs and made a bad pick? This guy right here. That'd be me. But, like, we don't know when he's going to be back, right? They've opted now for surgery. They tried to do it without surgery. Now they go the surgery route. I'm kind of hearing, I'm waiting to hear a little something else here, but that we're not necessarily just talking about 4 weeks. Like that's one of the things. Like, this may be sunk cost, right? Like we'll see when Andy's going to talk later today. He's going to have to address this. I don't think we'll get much from him. He never likes to talk much on Friday. Call them Fast Fridays for a reason. But if he's out of the mix completely, and if he's going to be out for a while, this like, we're still going to do some things that we would have done with Hollywood Brown. You got to start tailoring your offense to the guys you got.
Yeah, you do. And Sam's right. It is a big loss. I don't want to sound like I'm not not compassionate to his situation. I hate when anybody gets hurt in this league. But yeah, it's given what they were trying to accomplish and how defenses are playing people. Yeah, I mean, he creates a huge void, because now you're really relying on Xavier Worthy to be that deep threat for you. Maybe McCole Hardman, but I don't know if people take that seriously, when they defend the Chiefs. And it really kind of puts a lot more pressure on, maybe Juju Smith-Schuster's got to be more in this offense. Justin Watson obviously has got to be more in this offense. We'll see where Travis is this week, how much more they put on his plate. If that was just kind of like hey, let's try to do a little more load management last week, or if it's really like, hey, is he getting open with the same amount of consistency? But yeah, it's the idea of them being this huge, big play offense. I wasn't buying into it because of the defense. I'm certainly not buying into it. I think they'll be a good offense, but to be super explosive, I think without Hollywood, it's a big, big loss.
I'm not a doctor, Sam, but some of the things I'm kind of seeing here as I'm texting with some folks are months, right? We're not talking about weeks. That I don't think we're looking at 4 weeks and then he's back. We're talking about months, not weeks. What does, Hollywood Brown maybe not coming back to the final month of the season, maybe not being ready till the playoffs? What does that do for this team over the long haul?
Well, I mean, look, Hollywood Brown put in a lot of work in the offseason to try and be ahead of the game. And whenever he plays, he's going to be behind the curve, because he's never played in an actual NFL game with Patrick Mahomes before. And so whatever the timeline is, and look, there's people I chat with, like there's questions about, when it's going to be ready. I think they'll know more probably after the surgery, because this is an injury, from my understanding, that's it hasn't healed the way they thought it would. So you'll get more information after the surgery, but whenever he comes back, like, there's going to be questions about how to integrate him into the offense and how quickly that can happen, considering he is a new player. I mean, this is an off-season storyline for the Chiefs. Every off-season is, what's the connection going to be with Patrick Mahomes and how quickly is that going to develop? We saw a year ago, it took till December with everyone healthy as far as their wide receiver group. So, I mean, if you want to look at the bright side, it's going to have to mean that Xavier Worthy is going to have to grow up quicker. You're going to have to integrate other guys into the offense. I do think this means more for like a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, because the misnomer about Hollywood Brown is that he's just this deep threat. And when you see him in training camp and just his historical evidence of his own career, as far as his yards per reception and the routes he runs and things of that sort, like, he does a lot of the underneath stuff. And that's what he was going to do a lot in this offense too, not just run vertical routes. And that's why I think that, the biggest beneficiary as far as playing time is probably going to be Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah. And Juju, Jeff, now becomes a much more valuable pickup. And I think it speaks to what Brett Veach did in this offseason when they're trying to upgrade the wide receiver. It wasn't just Hollywood Brown. They also drafted Xavier Worthy. They had another chance to add a wide receiver they thought could help them, and Juju Smith-Schuster. They jumped on it. They grabbed it. I mean, this is why you don't just put one Band-Aid over a problem. You put several.
Yeah, no, exactly. But again, the question with Juju is also going to be health related because he had knee problems that ran him out of New England. And so people want to say it was just the talent around him and the quarterback. But yeah, he couldn't stay healthy. And he's had an issue with staying healthy too. And these are just real world problems of being in the NFL. We all know the Chiefs have won 2 straight championships in large part because they've been able to avoid injuries, major injuries over the last couple of years. And so taking these hits, I tried to tell people, in the offseason, don't start baking in the idea that the receivers are going to be better just because they're not named Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. It's like the guys have to be out there and they have to perform. And just because you got better names with better resume doesn't mean you get better results. And that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Hollywood Brown done. Months, it looks like, not weeks, is what I'm hearing, as he is now having surgery. And so the Chiefs are going to have to move on with Adam at the wide receiver position. We'll move on and talk more about this game between the Chiefs and Bengals. Let's talk a little bit about Kingsley Suamataia and Trey Hendrickson. Is this the biggest matchup, Sam, in your mind of this game, or do you have a bigger matchup that you think is the key to winning?
Well, I mean, when you look at like the Bengals defense versus the Chiefs offense, I do think there's a couple of bigger matchups. But, as far as the Kingsley thing is really interesting to me because there's professional former offensive linemen that had pretty wide spectrum of views as far as Kingsley Suamataia's debut. A lot of good reviews and a lot of very inconsistent tape, according to some. So, and those are people that know the offensive line position a lot better than I do that can't seem to get in the same room and agree on what kind of game he had. I thought the most telling thing was the Chiefs let him work one-on-one so frequently against the Ravens. And so whatever game he had, that lets you know at least what they thought of his preparedness to play in the NFL in week 1 right off the bat. Like, I thought that's an indication that they think Kingsley Suamataia is going to be just fine out there if they don't feel like they have to help him a bunch.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think of this one? I think it's certainly one of the key matchups, and this is a big challenge
It is.
for him.
I agree on both regards. I think the one reason they could be comfortable leaving him on an island against the Ravens is because the Ravens, they try to scheme pressure as opposed to putting out, a really good edge rusher in front of you and letting him work against you. So, yeah, I think Trey Hendrickson, a veteran guy who's got a ton of moves and is very, very savvy, is going to pose different problems. But I also feel like the Bengals secondary has been remade in a way that like the average person is not going to care as much about because they're so offensive driven. But they match up well with the Chiefs, and they always have, in the secondary, especially when Jesse Bates and Von Bell were there. But I've said bringing Von Bell back, adding Geno Stone, and moving Daxton Hill, who played safety last year, to corner. That's a lot of speed. Cameron Taylor-Britt's a 4-3 guy. Daxton Hill is a 4-3 guy. DJ Turner, a backup corner, is a 4-2-8 guy. So being able to just run by these guys, that's not going to be happening. And Mike Hilton's a pretty good slot corner. So their secondary against the Chiefs receivers will be a very interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, for sure. There's challenges galore. We'll talk about how big this challenge is here in a minute. We're brought to you by our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting-edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros. Boost energy, reduce stress, and enhance well-being. It's perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Embrace a healthier, happier you. Sam, you said there's some bigger matchups in this game than Hendrickson and Kingsley Suamataia. What are you looking at for some of the biggest matchups for this one?
Yeah, a couple things. And they're both Chiefs offense versus Bengals defense as well. But the Bengals run defense is terrible. And so I'm wondering whether or not the Chiefs do run the ball more. Now, Kingsley Suamataia, I thought, was much better in pass pro than he was as a run blocker in his debut. But, last week, Ramondre Stevenson led the NFL with 10 forced missed tackles last week, which is an issue for the Bengals all of a year before. DJ Reader's no longer there. The Bengals, according to FTN last year, gave up more yards before contact to rushers than anybody in football. And so if that's before contact and then Stevenson's breaking through contact, it's just a bad combination for the run defense. And so do the Chiefs put the ball on the ground or run the ball more than they would prefer to run the ball? Number two is the Bengals a year ago were the worst team in the league as far as yards after the catch. And we saw last week what Rashee Rice does after the catch. We saw last year what Rashee Rice does after the catch. He was like 29 yards, according to Next Gen Stats, 29 yards over yards per catch, over expectations a week ago. It's his strength. And so I think those are two really troublesome matchups for the Bengals defense.
How about you, Jeff? What do you think are the big ones?
Well, I mentioned the secondary. I agree with you on the Suamataia. Jamar Chase is the obvious one.
Yeah.
They targeted him 6 times last week. I don't think that was by accident. I think they were trying to limit usage, get him going. He had been practicing a whole lot. I think he'll be much more involved in what they do. And I'm assuming T. Higgins is not playing this game. Jermaine Burton, young receiver, has not taken off yet. He only got like 4 targets, I think, in that entire game. And so, yeah, I think they're going to go to Jamar Chase a lot. So Jamar Chase against Trent McDuffie, Jamar Chase against whoever's on the other corner. I would imagine they probably will give a lot of safety help to wherever he's at, but they'll still go to him anyway.
Yeah. Is Jamar Chase is a threat if he's certainly not as big a threat if you don't have a healthy Joe Burrow, right? Like if you don't have the full complement of what Jamar Chase can do, that helps. And I think that's the question. Does Steve Spagnuolo look at this and say, he can't throw it? Like we're jumping everything short, like that's one of the big challenges. Is this offense the kind of challenge it's been in the past if they don't have that deep game available to them, Sam?
Well, we saw a week ago where the Chiefs took away the deep game because Lamar Jackson threw it deep a lot a year ago, a lot more than people think he did a year ago, to where during the first half, I think Lamar Jackson's average pass went like 1 yard past the line of scrimmage a week ago. Like the Chiefs did try and take away the back end, and I anticipate they'll do the same. Like, why wouldn't you do the same thing against the Bengals team that, struggled last week against a team that just did that? I think you've got, and I understand the wanting to try and jump the short routes because that's what we saw Joe Burrow throw, but he threw all of them. That's all he threw last week, and the Bengals couldn't still move the football. So if that recipe worked a week ago, I don't know why you change off of that.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow is eminently sackable, right? Lamar Jackson is incredibly hard to get down and then runs for first downs. Burrow will tuck it and run, and when there's open field and get there. He's not a statue, but he takes a lot of sacks. So is this easier just overall for the Chiefs defense this week than last week was for the Ravens, or just the threat of Jamar Chase make it more difficult? Does the rebuilt and giant offensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals present a bigger problem than what the Ravens did?
It's a different it's a different kind of challenge, but I think it's tougher in the sense of you've got a quarterback who, if he gets presented with a situation that Lamar Jackson had at the end of last week's game, he's not going to miss that throw. And the Ravens were able to the Chiefs were able to make the Ravens very one-dimensional by eliminating Derrick Henry from that game. And so it became very obviously if the Ravens were going to move the football, Lamar Jackson had to be a part of the run game. I think that the way the Bengals can play football when they're at their best, they can be very balanced. They have running backs who can get out of the backfield and catch passes, which is, as we saw with Nick Bolton, could be an issue. And so I think they're just more balanced and they're more consistent when it comes to throwing the football. So that to me is a tougher challenge than what the Ravens presented.
Yeah, I do think the size of the Bengals offensive line is going to be something that can wear down. And she's talked about the depth of the D line. I think that could be something. Marius Mims is maybe coming back. I don't know where they're going to fit him in, if they're going to play him at guard, because they have Orlando Brown on the left side, Trent Brown on the right side. Trent Brown's listed at 380. Right, 380. Mary Jim's listed at like 345, 350. We know Orlando Brown's 345, 350. I mean, it is a massive offensive line and a Chiefs defensive line that maybe isn't as deep as they would like it to be. I do think just the line of scrimmage is going to be a big one, and I would think that the Bengals would want to beat up on the Chiefs defensive line and run the ball, but you get behind. That's one of the things the Chiefs offense can do is force the Bengals to play from behind. We're always brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world, home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Jeff, if we get a victory from the Kansas City Chiefs and they start 2-0, beating the Ravens and the Bengals coming out of the chutes, are we going to be hearing a lot of talk about the Kansas City Chiefs going undefeated?
From sane people? Yeah, I mean, maybe that some of the crazies will be talking that, but I don't think I think it would be an impressive start, no question about it, and an important start when it comes to playoff seeding and probably just mental dominance. Just knowing you've beaten two of your biggest rivals out of the jump is going to be important for you. But now I think to be talking about an undefeated season, you got to have like really lopsided victories. You got to see an immense difference in talent. And the Chiefs, we know their depth is an issue. We know that the teams that we've seen them play are going to be good. You saw Buffalo last night, obviously looked pretty good. So that's going to be, again, an interesting matchup when they meet up. But no, I think they'll beat my prediction of being 11-6 if they start off, with 2 wins here. But I think it's end of the day, they're probably at best a 12, 13 win team.
Okay. In the games looming, Jeff mentioned the at Bills game that's out there. Also an at 49ers that's out there. The division games can be difficult. The Chargers, we'll see what they actually are. They started 1-0. Sam, will we hear it? Should we hear it if they go 2-0?
I don't know the answer to the first one. The second one's certainly not. But, when I predicted 12-5, I didn't do it going by game, win, loss, but rather more probabilities. And certainly the probabilities were more likely than not they go 1-1 in their first 2 games. If you've got a 65 to 70% chance of winning 2 games, you'll probably drop one of them. And so, if they start 2-0, I think to Jeff's point, it should increase what your preseason prediction was about their overall record. But I don't think it's some sort of indication that this is a team that's just going to run through the league. We saw during the middle of this show how quickly things can change with your roster. Yeah.
Hollywood Brown going down while we're on or being put on the IR while we're broadcasting this, streaming this. If you're catching us via the podcast, 10 o'clock on Fridays. We do one of our Red, Gold, and Bold podcasts, 10 a.m. on Fridays, Central Time. So we've got people checking in from all over the country, all over the world. We've got some folks listening. I agree. This is the team to ask it about, though. Right? They are the 2-time defending champions. They added the element of speed back into the offense. We saw it already play a big role against the Baltimore Ravens. If you're going to talk about undefeated seasons, Jeff, it's the Chiefs you're going to talk about it with.
Yeah, but again, let's remember how that Ravens game ended, which was with them having a chance to potentially win the game with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. That was really not the Chiefs' fault. The Chiefs' responsibility for it. They just couldn't make the play at the end. So, if you're going to have every team you play make some huge mistake or not be able to turn an opportunity into something that is productive for them. If you're relying on that to go undefeated, well, yeah, they got a great shot. But I think most of us understand that there's going to be some moments where, again, injuries are going to play a role in this, and they're not like this big a difference between them and the rest of the league. It's like this. And so that means week to week you're going to be dealing with stuff.
Yeah, and that's what Jeff just said even comes from those of us that think the Chiefs are the best team in the league.
Yeah.
It's not that we think they're head and shoulders above the rest of the team and the rest of the teams in the league.
I like this. I think T-Dog says, I think bad losses right before the playoffs are good to have. Refocus the team. Okay, we'll target. Which one should we plan on? Is it the Raiders? Is it Carolina?
They play on Christmas Day again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't remember that talk though when they lost to the Raiders, though. Did you? This is good for us.
No.
Let's consider that the Chiefs were playing they play in San Francisco and in Buffalo this season.
Yeah.
Let's consider they're playing those two teams next week. I mean, do any of us think that's better than a coin flip game for them?
Slightly.
On the road?
Slightly. But I think
both those teams
are arguing over hairs here.
Yeah.
But that's the point, is that it is just a hair's difference, right? You do have to play both of those games this season.
Yeah. And I do like what Tyler said. I mean, Tyler said, listen, get to the Sean said at San Francisco, at Buffalo in the weird Wednesday game, and that is going to make for another screwy week. Chiefs are as good as it gets at handling short weeks, but that doesn't mean they won it, and it doesn't mean they're better because of it. But Tyler was the one that said, make it through San Francisco undefeated, and then let's talk. And by the way, that would mean beating the Bengals, winning at Atlanta, at the Chargers, home for the Saints, and then going to San Francisco. I think that's probably the right time, right? I think that's about when the talk would be like, okay, it's still unlikely, but at that point you're 6-0 and you've cleared one of the two big road hurdles. Like that's about when it'd be okay to have that conversation. Let's have the conversation about who's going to win this game. Jeff, what do you think prediction wise for this one?
Call me crazy. I like the Bengals just because it means more to them. I think when you have the kind of game they had last week, it's a wake-up call for where you're at. And, all the stuff that was happening with them in the offseason, not just Jamar Chase but Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins. Like, if they want this to be a real year for them where they can actually do something and make a run in a championship, this is a huge game to win, not just because of the Chiefs, because of your own division, because the wild card situation is going to be muddled. I think they come in here and play hard and find a way to get the win.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, what are your thoughts? These games have all been field goal games between Mahomes and Burrow, the Chiefs and Bengals. What do you see?
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs, but I do think that when the Bengals are really bad, obviously, as we've talked about, the last two podcasts, in the first 2 weeks of the season, which is why I thought they should have been grateful that they played the Chiefs in the second game. I think this trash talk is an indication that you are not going to overlook the Chiefs going into Arrowhead. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So I do think it's good for them. They do have Jamar Chase with a full week of practice for once, but I'm just not sure what their answers are if Jamar Chase is their only wide receiver option. And then I think they've got issues defensively. I think that Rashee Rice is going to be a problem. I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a problem for him. And the Chiefs are playing at home. So and this is a big game for the Chiefs too. So I've got 27-16 Chiefs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Going after it. I think as bad as the Bengals played and as much coverage as is being given to how bad they are the first 2 weeks, that the whole world is on the Chiefs. And when the whole world goes on one side, I like to get on the other side and grab the Bengals.
So do the Sharps, yeah.
Right. And so I want to be on the Bengals and say, okay, this is going to be one of those games. It's a rivalry game, as we pointed out. And so it's going to be a knockdown, drag it out, and it comes down to a field goal at the end. And the Chiefs are at home, and I'll take the Chiefs to kick that field goal. So I'll go something in the neighborhood of 27-24. I do think the Chiefs offense is back largely, and I think they're going to be explosive. So I think the Bengals are going to have to put points on the board. But I applied that exact same theory to last night's Thursday night game and everybody being on the Buffalo Bills. So I picked the Miami Dolphins minus 2.5 points, and that was not good. That did not work. I do think everybody was on the Bills, and the Bills rolled. So just because everybody's on one side doesn't doesn't really make it, that's not a foolproof way. But I like Sam's breakdown. If I were to coach the game, I do think the Chiefs look like they ought to handle this one. But rivalry games go another way. So I'll take it with the Chiefs by field goal.
I think that Tyler makes a good point there, Soren, as far as if the Chiefs do lose this game, it's going to be that sort of manner, because that's a couple times the way that they have lost this game to the Bengals is the Bengals are aggressive against the Chiefs in a way that the Chiefs are not.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we've had those. In fact, Andy Reid's worst day, even worse than having to come out and talk to the media after starting 1-5, his worst day was trying to explain whether or not he did or didn't let the Bengals score, or was thinking about letting
100%.
I forgot about that.
100%.
It went on for 5 days because
Yeah.
it was post game and he didn't really answer it. And then it was Monday and he didn't really answer it. And then it came up again on Wednesday. I think it was like Thursday. And we were still asking, like, we just want to clarify here, because he gave his ambiguous. And I think it's the most over a barrel he's ever been. And that's because Zach Taylor was aggressive. I think that's a great point.
And a year later, when they lost in Cincinnati in the regular season, it was because he lined up for a 54-yard field goal rather than what was it, like a 4th and 2 play. And then the Bengals winning the game in Chiefs territory, go for it on 4th down to win the game. Like there's been a difference in that area that has made the difference in the final score in this matchup in the past.
It has. Zach Taylor's gotten the better of him on the game management side of things. All right, we're always brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, our friends at Besame Wellness and Restore Hyper Wellness. Make sure if you want to support the podcast, support our great sponsors. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold and Bold Podcast.